Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is mid-morning talk with Najma Kota, and as we've apologized, our guest in the first hour unfortunately fell ill and was unavailable. Thank you so much for bearing with us when we repeated one of our but very popular interviews, if I may say so, with Joy and Joseph. And as always, we look forward to the second half of the program, where under our wellness segment, we feature special guests, of course, in the field of expertise. And today, in particular, we're talking about parent child relations. This is a topic that I think we can all, in some way or another, relate to, whether we are parents or whether we are a child. Either way, definitely so. So, a topic close to everyone's hearts, and we have a very special guest joining us live from the USA. Well, it's morning or midday here, very early morning there. We welcome Dr. Omar Altalib, who holds a PhD in sociology, an MA in sociology, and of course, his undergrad study was a BA in psychology. But as I was saying to him just before we started the show live, that my goodness, every time I look at my guests' bios and CVs, if you like, it's unbelievable. Alhamdulillah, the energy, the effort, the passion, and you can see where a person is driven in terms of what they've contributed in their academic fields. So I take great pleasure in welcoming our very, very, very special guest this morning, Dr. Umar Al Talib. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you.
Right. So you among your many publications, one of it is having written a book with leading authors on parent-child relations. It's also translated publications from Arabic and English, and you also provided training and consultations to institutions. Now, if one has to define this, like I said, it's so broad. But a parent child relationship is one that nurtures the physical, emotional, and social development of the child. It is a unique bond that every child has. So, and of course, if we can break that down, if I may, this relationship lays the foundation of the child's personality, life choices, and overall behavior. So, where would you start? What can you tell us about this definition, if you like? There are many.
Thank you so much, Sister Najma. Let me begin by saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. I am very grateful to my creator and to my collaborators who we worked together on this book called Parent-Child Relations, a Guide to Raising Children. It has been translated into 13 languages and is available for free download as a PDF copy online for those who would like to take a look at it and to benefit from it. And in terms of defining parenting, as you mentioned, I think before I define parenting, let me ask you to ponder two things. The World Cup that is taking place in Qatar and the
Yes.
protests that are taking place in Iran. And here we see some amazing and important events taking place in the world, and you look at people's behavior and how it varies and how it differs and how it can be positive and how it can be negative. So when we looked at parenting in the book and in our lectures, we focused on how parenting is absolutely essential in creating good character.
Right.
Once good character is established within the children, then they will grow up with the proper values, and you will see those values manifested, whether it is through the events that we see in Qatar or Iran or around the world, both positive and negative.
Right. So, how does one do that? Character building, because that's, as I understand, is our foundation.
Yes, so you take something like courage. Everybody might say courage is a good thing. Everybody might say that courage is a good value and part of a good character in human beings. And yet, not many of us think very deeply about how to inculcate courage in children. In fact, for many families, and this is not a criticism, but just an observation, when a child from a very young age tries to do something, out of our concern and love, we might say, "Oh, careful! Don't do that. Take it slowly. Stay away." Whether it's jumping on the bed or trying to hold a knife or thinking about playing with fire. So we begin with negativity. Courage
Right.
requires a positive approach. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what we ought to do in terms of teaching courage is, for example, we take the initiative, show a knife to a child, and say to the child, this is a tool that you can use for good or bad. And we show the child firsthand what it looks like to use the knife for good. So, example, we might cut a carrot in front of the child with the knife, and we also demonstrate to them something they can see and smell and hear and touch, how a knife can be used in an incorrect way, such as cutting one's clothes or damaging one's toys. In addition to this, we need to take our children to places that they would normally be scared of, whether
Right.
it's places in the city that are defined as poverty stricken and full of crime, or whether it is a dark room, or whether it is a forest with strange sounds. We need to take our children there and demonstrate to them that the only thing we need to fear, and in fact not fear but be aware of, is our Creator. We create God consciousness in our child, and we show the child that there really is nothing to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting perspective in terms of, I never thought of it that way. There's courage, there's bravery, but then there's also building their self confidence. So, are we doing the same thing in
Well,
terms of,
there's a lot of overlap in terms of these concepts and in terms of inculcating in children. So, a strong child who is a courageous child, who is a self confident child, needs to have an internal locus of control. And what that means is they can take initiative without somebody having to tell them to do so. And so, either, for example, with prayer, we don't want to spend 20 years of the child's life telling them it's time for prayer, go and do it. We show the child how prayer is done and involve them in our own prayer from as soon as they can start walking, and then give them the courage and the initiative to pray and even lead our own prayers, despite the fact that they may be 2 or 3 or
right,
4 or 5 years old.
right? In other words, we're leading by example. Can can a child ever be overconfident? I mean, we're talking about a little toddler that we now nurturing and molding in terms of character and good character and values.
That's a good point you raised, Sister Nejma. So it's a spectrum, right? From no confidence to extreme confidence. And we want a balance in between. So, as parents, we would model that balance, but we should also expose the child to elements in society where that balance is moderate and where it is immoderate so they can see the difference.
Right. So, when we talk about this, it sounds pretty straightforward, and we know that parenting is not an exact science, and each one comes with their own personalities, whether it's in the genes, and we can have that debate as well. But The nurturing is, of course, the essence of what we're talking about today when you say it's parent-child relationship. So, how does then, in psychology, we talk about how we were parented and how much of that we repeat, the good and the bad. And since we want to shift away from the negative, I wouldn't call it bad, how much of it can we turn around? Knowing that there were some bad habits along the way.
Excellent point, and I'm happy you raised it. Let me give you an example that relates at least partially to the point you have raised. My parents are Arabic speaking. They were born in Iraq, and they belong to Islamic society and are contributors to Islamic culture and civilization. They moved, and I moved with them from the country of Iraq to the country of the United States when I was 1 year old.
Okay.
Now, one of the key elements in preserving culture and religion is language. And
Right.
this is something that families deal with everywhere, especially migrant families like my own family. So I was a person of Arab heritage, yet I was growing up in an environment in the United States that has a dominant language of English. I would hope and encourage all parents to help their children preserve their language and culture. In this case, we are talking about Islam.
Right.
Arabic is a key element of that. Now, how am I going to be able to preserve and to be able to know Arabic, speak Arabic, and have confidence as an Arabic speaker in a nation where English is the dominant language? Thankfully, what my parents did is they took a decision, which was a very difficult decision, especially at that time. And they said they will only speak to myself and then later on my brother and then later on my sister in Arabic at home. So
Right.
at home, the only language I heard from my parents and the only language I was allowed to communicate with at home was Arabic. So I grew up not knowing English, despite being in an English language country. I learned English when I started going to school, when I started going to kindergarten. So that was 4 or 5 years old. I
Mm-hmm.
was able, through the perseverance of my parents, to know Arabic, speak Arabic, and be confident in Arabic. And also by going to school and playing with children in the neighborhood and being around Muslims who did not know Arabic, to pick up English and to perfect the English language. This was something extremely controversial for my parents because people either told them they are crazy for bringing up a child who only spoke Arabic at home in a completely non-Arabic environment outside the home, or they told them that they are too conservative because then their child would become unable to succeed in a non-Arabic environment.
Right.
The result, thankfully, was that their experiment succeeded. They were able to preserve the Arabic language in their children, and their children also succeeded in the non Arabic English environment. But this
Mm.
was not easy. They were
Right.
criticized by the English speakers they came into contact with, and also many Arabic speakers who felt that they were doing a disservice to their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would I advise parents? If you really want to preserve your child's religious and cultural heritage, the language of the parents has to be preserved, or at least the Arabic language has to be preserved, not just as a theoretical language, So children in the Muslim community must learn how to memorize and read the Quran from a very young age, but the spoken Arabic. And the fact of the matter is, of the over 100 million Arabs in the world today, most of them, they don't speak Arabic, they speak a dialect of Arabic.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Right.
And what happens is, knowing an Arabic dialect allows you to speak with some Arabs from the same country, but it divorces you from the sources of our faith, and also you cannot communicate with Arabs from other dialects.
Right. So coming back to what we were saying about character building, that's really very important, because you're creating an environment of, I would say, a sense of belonging, a
Yes,
sense of knowing what is important and what gives you an identity, basically. And not only because you're in a foreign environment, so to speak, but even if you're in your own, among your own people, so to speak, there still is that reason to know what your values are within the household and how you preserve that. And yeah, that's a very interesting angle, and I think coming from a sociological point of view, I can see where your mind is set. It does in fact bring in a very, very interesting angle to parent-child relationship. So we continue with our discussion after this break.
This is Salam Media.
Thousands of Syrian Palestinian refugees and Lebanese children do not have access to education. Amman means safety and is a school that provides formal education from kindergarten to grade 9. Africa Muslims Agency aims to provide 650 children with education that will change the trajectory of their lives and their families' lives. Fulfill your intention by fulfilling their dreams. Donate 16,000 Rand per child or any amount. Go to africamuslimsagency.co.za or call us on 011 834 8685. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Give charity without delay, for it stands in the way of calamities. For child-headed households in Bloomendale in the Eastern Cape, the daily diet consists of white bread and a carton of cheap juice or sugar water, known locally as the poppy water diet. Make a difference to that one child or family. The Al Fida Foundation has over the past 13 years worked on the ground and gathered the largest database in the Eastern Cape region of Muslim Zakah recipients. Phone our offices at 041 484 1288 or visit our website at www.alfida.co.za. The Al Fida Foundation, your social investment partner in the Eastern Cape.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Decades of war, devastating drought, and economic collapse have pushed the Afghan people to the edge of survival. 24 million need life-saving aid, and 5 million children are knocking on famine's door. The world cannot just watch as this terrible crisis unfolds. With your support, the Al Imdad Foundation is delivering emergency relief to the Afghan people. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Crossing over live from the USA is our very special guest, Dr. Omar Altalib, who is the author of Parent-Child Relations. And we're discussing parent-child relations today. A Guide to Raising Children is the title of the book, right? What was the inspiration behind putting this book together, Dr. Altalib?
Well, indeed, there were a number of inspirations. And let me mention three things that we noticed in the world today that led us to emphasize parenting and the key elements of parenting. Number one, we are in an age where, for the first time in human history, children know more than their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, for the first time in human history, children are able to make friends without ever physically meeting their friend. A third point, we are in an age, for the first time in human history, where we are leaving behind for our children and grandchildren an earth that is unlivable, an environment that is destroyed, a situation where nature cannot sustain life on earth. So these are three huge challenges for any family, particularly the families that are facing the kinds of tragedies that have been mentioned in by your sponsors and by many of the advertisers on Salam Media. And I'm very happy to hear that these issues are being talked about. So what we wanted to do in this book is to show parents and to help parents address these current challenges in the most effective way possible. And our approach has been to rely first and foremost on the Quran and the traditions of our Prophet, peace be upon him, for the Muslim families that are trying to raise good Muslim children, and at the same time to take into account the latest research, the data that has been accumulated in the world, particularly the Western world, on what works and what doesn't work in terms of raising children. By bringing revelation on the one hand and the realities of the world today together into a comprehensive model, we are hoping that parents will be able to raise children that are able to face the challenges that everybody is facing today.
Right. That sounds very, very, I beg your pardon, an exceptional tool. Sorry, I got a bit tongue-tied there. But I think the very first point you made about children knowing more than their parents, that's very, very, well, should we be impressed or should we be afraid? Because then you've got a whole new challenge that adults are up against.
Yes, and thank you for highlighting that. For example, in our cultures, we value very much respect for our elders. And almost every traditional culture, you will find this element in the upbringing of their children. Now, part of the respect for elders was because they had more knowledge and more wisdom. Now, if we are in an age where the knowledge available if the knowledge available immediately via a smartphone in the hands of a child is vastly more than their parents could ever know or
Right.
their elders could ever be able to conjure up. What does this do to the relationship of respect and of dignifying our parents and elders? So, what we need to do as parents is realize that we are not going to be able to be ahead of our children in terms of knowledge.
Right.
But we are the ones who have greater experience and greater insights than our children, and we need to capitalize on that a lot more than we used to before.
So is that how you've addressed this point in your book?
Yes. So what we would say, for example, is rather than reciting facts to children, which is important, and we're not minimizing that, what we are saying is give your children as much experience as possible. What does that mean? For example, we want to teach our children the value of water and clean water. So what we would do then is to physically take our children to places where water is there, and we would discuss with them, what do you see in the water? Are people throwing litter in the water? Are people polluting the water? Or is the water being respected and treated as the amazing gift that God has given us? And then we do the same kind of experiential education, experiential learning with our children, with everything in our environment, so that they can see, hear, feel, and touch the environment, both good and bad.
So now we're talking about the formative years here, right? How do we progress into the older age groups? Because sometimes that's where it becomes more challenging if we've missed out on doing all of this in the formative years. You do the best you can anyway, but we're not knowledgeable enough.
I agree. And one of the most challenging periods for children today is the adolescence period, which can destroy families and has destroyed many, many families around the world of all religions and backgrounds and cultures. So what are some tips we give for addressing issues in adolescence prior to them becoming serious major problems? One is that an adolescent has a huge amount of energy, both mental and physical. So the idea is to channel that energy in positive ways. So if we had trained the child from an early age to read, such as they right before they go to bed every night, we read a book to them. Then during the adolescence period, we expose our children to even more complex and more deeper reading material, and the scholars who are able to provide that kind of intellectual challenge. Because you see, arguments between parents and their teens tend to go around in circles. But if you take your teenager and have them sit for an hour or more with scholars, hopefully great scholars, then the dynamic is different, and the teen can see in front of them a world that they were not exposed to at home. So this is the world of ideas. What about the world of action? Teens want to do something, and you can either provide them with an opportunity to change the world or do destructive things like driving too fast or taking drugs. So one way to channel that energy that God has put into teenagers is to encourage them, or actually physically take them mountain climbing or hiking or engaging in programs to clean up the streams and rivers. Thankfully, throughout the world, there are so many various outdoor activities available to many people that teens can expend their energy in those productive ways.
Right. And then at this stage in their lives, socializing becomes extremely important to them. In fact, it's the only thing that they thrive in at that point, if I'm not mistaken. So after the break, I'd like to talk about in relation to your second point, in terms of socializing. And you said, you can befriend someone without ever being in touch physically with them. So that poses as another completely different challenge in terms of the environment and how we as adults understand that environment. Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? We'll get Dr. To answer us after the break.
This is Salam Media.
Over 33 million people have been affected by the devastating floods in Pakistan. Homes have been destroyed, crops have been swept away, and roads have been damaged. Families are mourning their loved ones while trying to survive these horrific conditions. Penny Appeal is on the ground now, delivering food, shelter, medical supplies, and water to those in need. You can help save a life by donating today. Visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain development company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
For every child who lost a parent,
for every refugee who lost their home,
for every community without water,
for every person searching for a way to give, Africa Muslims Agency has been at your service for 35 years, connecting hearts and changing lives. Thank you for helping us to serve the needy since 1987. Support our journey by donating to Africa Muslims Agency as we commemorate 35 years of empowering, educating, and inspiring.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031 202 4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za, situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Devastating floods in Pakistan have washed away villages, claimed the lives of more than 1,000 people, damaged nearly 1 million homes, and left over 33 million people in desperate need of help. As the catastrophe unfolds, Islamic Relief is on the ground, reaching people with life-saving aid. Our team are working tirelessly to deliver food and shelter. Your support is urgently needed now to help save more lives. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, in hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Dr. Omar Altalib, before the break, we spoke about socializing and growing up from your formative years into adolescence, which proves to be the most difficult age group for the teenager, him or herself, as well as the parents. So let's talk about this fitting in, or this new concept of socializing, as it were.
Well, socialization clearly is an important element. Children have to learn to be civilized. And that happens through interacting physically, face to face with other children. When a child never interacts, never plays, never fights with another child, they do not become as civilized as they ought to be. And yet we have a conundrum today. For the first time in human history, children are spending more time with technology than they are spending with other human beings. And this is a disaster. This is clearly, yes, this is clearly problematic psychologically, sociologically, religiously. Every element of being a civilized human being, which is essential to being part of a religious community and a thriving society. So, in our book, we mention that as much as possible, parents need to help the child establish physical, direct, face-to-face connections with other children, whether this is in the masjid or in the community center or interacting with neighbors on all levels. Of course, it is easier said than done because iPads and smartphones and computers are so attractive and they are so easy. But if you want your child to be a healthy child, psychologically and socially, give them and provide for them and make it part of their life to be and to interact with other human beings.
Right. So how does one as a parent curtail that? Because I think that poses as one of the biggest difficulties for parents to control.
Yes, and I'm happy you use this word control. It is something that we lean toward and we feel is the way that we handle things, especially with our children. I would like to suggest a slight modification, and rather than thinking of it in terms of controlling our children, let's use a softer word like guidance.
All right.
Right? Every time we pray and we say the great chapter on Fatiha, we say in one of the verses, "Oh Lord, please guide us to the straight path."
Right.
And that is something that the Quran continuously emphasizes. So as parents, how do we guide the child? It certainly should not be through force, which unfortunately sometimes parents use force because it's easier, cheaper, faster. What we are suggesting in our book is to help guide the children to become civilized human beings by, first of all, having maximum family interaction, not just physically being next to your child, but speaking, holding, playing, engaging in activities that stimulate the mind and stimulate the body.
Right.
So sitting next to each other watching a TV show, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is avoiding all electronics, and even better, going outside and doing things together. Outside the family, it is very important and critical for parents to know their neighbors and for their children to know their neighbors' children, irrespective of the neighbor's religion or background or culture or language.
Absolutely.
Because children interact despite all of these things. They don't have the hang-ups that adults have. And so this is key. And then you go outside your neighborhood. Of course, when a child goes to school, they're interacting with others in school. But the situation of most schools around the world is so miserable and terrible that the negatives outweigh the positives. And so that's why so many Muslims have started to engage in something called homeschooling or unschooling.
Now, when we talk about parent-child relationship, and you were saying, rather than control, let's guide. Now you have these different types, either permissive, authoritative, neglectful, authoritarian. There's these. And it's not to be critical of parents, but of course it's at the time you say it's the best thing I could do, or it's how I was raised and I turned out fine. And that dreaded line when I was your age. I think that's where parents now need to be a bit more mindful of where they are at and how it is that they want to parent their children, because at some stage they are going to leave the home and take with them the values that they were taught or guided by.
Absolutely. And so we are not critical of parents per se, who may have made mistakes. We are all human beings. But what we encourage is what we normally do in the workplace, and in entertainment and in sports is criticism, or
Right.
constructive criticism. Now, who is constructively criticizing parents? Either it doesn't happen, or it happens in disjointed ways. What we are encouraging is for parents to get together, have dinners together, go to weddings together, engage in prayers at the mosque together, but inculcate within all these activities some time for critical self-reflection. And first of all, you have to be humble enough to accept criticism, but
Right.
also you have to establish close relations with others so that both of you feel comfortable in terms of engaging in, saying things like, well, what you did with your child, that is something we feel is positive, but this other thing you did is negative. And sometimes to facilitate that conversation, we need an expert, somebody who is trained in this field. It could be a
Right.
marriage and family therapist. It could be a psychologist. The mental health field is so critical for our world today that we have to take the initiative and engage the mental health field in our lives.
Right. So, what, in your view, is the most common dilemma parents face?
The most common dilemma that parents face is that frequently children are rebellious. Children reject the guidance of their parents. Children push back. And parents may take this personally, or feel that it is because the parents are a failure, or they may feel that the child is a failure. What we would like to suggest is this pushback, this rejection, this negativity from the child is not a reflection of something problematic in the child or the parent per se. What it is a natural attempt by the child to understand their boundaries. And they do that by pushing the envelope, by engaging in activities that may go further and further toward the edges, further and further toward the limits that the parents put. And this is an educational exercise. It is not an exercise in in terms of a desire to actually frustrate the parent. Unfortunately, we as parents get frustrated when in fact we might look at the child and say, oh, I see. So you want to play outside for 5 hours rather than the 3 hours we allocated to you. Let's discuss our rules, and let's talk about what is good for everybody. And as parents, we are the ones who are helping you understand the accumulated experience and knowledge that we are able to give you.
Right. So, after this ad break, we talk about the role of both parents.
Hunger ratios in South Africa are on an upward trajectory since the beginning of COVID-19. Over 23% of South African households experienced hunger last summer. At SANZAF, we aim to ease the hunger struggles of those in need by providing freshly prepared meals daily. You can be part of this by donating towards the SANZAF Meals Project. Visit sanzaf.org.za or call us on 011 834 6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
Over 33 million people have been affected by the devastating floods in Pakistan. Homes have been destroyed, crops have been swept away, and roads have been damaged. Families are mourning their loved ones while trying to survive these horrific conditions. Penny Appeal is on the ground now, delivering food, shelter, medical supplies, and water to those in need. You can help save a life by donating today. Visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Dr. Omar Altalib is our guest. This is the last 15 or 10 minutes, actually, just before the end of Mid-Morning Talk for this week's edition. So before the break, what is the role of both parents? Because it has to be balanced, right?
Yes, and this word balance, I'm happy that you brought it up because sometimes we lose sight of its importance. So religiously we have to be balanced, socially we have to be balanced, and within the family we have to be balanced. So fathers and mothers need to work out between themselves, hopefully before the children are born, the way they will divide their roles and responsibilities and commitments to the child. Now, some people might say, well, we already have a traditional system where the father is outside the house doing the critical and important task of bringing in halal income, and the mother, her job is to raise the children. Unfortunately, this is not a balanced model. Islam is predicated on the notion of fatherhood and motherhood being real and in the life of the child inside the house. So what we are encouraging is, in terms of the mother and the father discussing with each other, it doesn't have to be face-to-face, the issues that occur or will occur with their children and resolve them as much as possible beforehand. We clearly show that the research indicates when children see their parents diverge, this creates confusion and chaos inside the child's life. So to establish stability for the children, The parents need to be on the same page. They need to have decided how to address critical concerns in a unified fashion. And also in terms of conflict resolution, the child has to be able to see both parents engaging in successful conflict resolution within the family.
Right, and that is the most important element, if I may, in disciplining.
Yes, because discipline does not work when the one parent is too lenient and the other is too constrictive. And so, regardless of the mechanisms that the parents have chosen to use for discipline, it has to be consistent by both parents. And there has to be an understanding between both parents what the limits for each child is.
Why the parent? What happens there?
Good question. Well, I think what happens is, if there's difficulties, then they can be resolved also by talking to and consulting people in the marriage and family therapy profession. Alhamdulillah, there are more and more such professionals, and they are of continuous benefit to families, both before there are any issues and during and after.
Right. So, what are the qualities of strong parent-child relationships?
The qualities of a strong relationship between parents and children revolve around honesty. And this is an easy word that is talked about, but very hard to implement. It is very hard for a father or mother to say to their child, my son, my daughter, I made a mistake. And so there becomes unrealistic views of the parent by the child. Children need to be aware that their parents have knowledge and experience, but that they are not perfect. Sometimes it's difficult for a parent to acknowledge that to themselves, but it's very important to acknowledge it to the child.
Right. And parents that are too mindful of having made their own mistakes and making sure the children don't do the same thing, I think also go into a bit of a paranoia state, and the parenting then is not exactly the way it should be. So I think reflecting, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly, and it's the height of good parenting is to share with the child what experiences the parent themselves went through, both good and bad. That is very positive and very good for the child in the short and long run.
Right, and then as we said in the beginning, that then becomes, the leading by example, and also showing your weaknesses and your strengths, and building that confidence to say, well, I came through it, and you set that example. You don't have to teach it. So that's why I think your point is very, very important to note in terms of talk to them about it. Where were the difficulties? Parents are not perfect. We also have flaws, like you said, in that the apologizing, saying please and thank you. When we spoke about character, important not only in the formative years, because I think as they grow older, we take for granted that, oh, I'm sorry, or that I appreciate what you're doing. I don't have to really thank him. Or does he really deserve it, or he deserve it today? So I think we as parents need to be mindful of our character and the polite manner in which we choose to speak to our children with.
Yes, indeed. And here parents can show the children the difference between the person and the behavior. So a parent needs to be able to emphasize to the child, my son, my daughter, I love you. However, the behavior that you engaged in, such as you pulled your sibling's hair or you didn't pick up your toys, this behavior needs to be changed and needs to be improved. And furthermore, when the issue of honesty comes up, we want our children to be honest with us, but there has to be a safe environment for that honesty to take place, and you model it by the parent themselves being honest about their own mistakes with the child. And when the child comes and says something honest, our reaction should be one of understanding and good interaction. So, for example, a child might come and say, Daddy or Mommy, I hate you. Sometimes our reaction is, oh my God, how could you say that? That's terrible. What we can say to the child is, thank you for being honest, and can we talk about this? And can we try to understand what you mean?
And when we talk about love being the most important ingredient, you even discipline with love, and we learn that from our Islamic teachings, that it's important for parents to demonstrate their love for each other, in the presence of their children, because that then binds and unifies the household, and then you'll have children feeling secure. And when we started off, we spoke about a sense of belonging. Well, that's what it is. That's how you create that safe atmosphere for the children.
Absolutely. And when parents correctly model affection inside the household, then children can understand the kinds of thoughts and feelings and behaviors one engages in with loved ones. And then parents can also model proper behavior outside the household. And this will create a good comprehensive model for children growing up.
Alhamdulillah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Jazakallah khair. And as we spoke off air earlier, I asked, when will you stop? Because I've seen your work and I'm amazed at what contributions you've made in the academic field. And I think you're passionate about a lot of other humanitarian work. You speak a lot all over the world. So may you continue and inshallah benefit society as you have over these years through your academic work.
And thank you to Salam Media for providing this forum. May Allah bless you all.
Ameen. Have a good day, inshallah. And thank you once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Parent-child relationships develop over time, influenced by child characteristics, parent characteristics, and the context in which families operate. These factors mix together in unique ways to create incredible diversity in the qualities of those relationships. So let's hope this last half hour, 1 hour or so was informative enough for us to take some tools from it, some advice from it, and direction from it. Thank you so much once again for being with me on this Monday edition of Mid Morning Talk. I look forward to being with you next week. And yes, next week we have one more left before the end of the year. So I suppose there'll be more to look forward to beyond that. So until then, stay with Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.